The shift happens before anyone names it. A conversation continues, but something invisible has already moved. One person leans back half an inch. Another starts explaining more than necessary. Eye contact breaks in one direction and locks in another. No one announces it. No one votes on it. But the hierarchy in the room has just been rewritten. You think power is stable. You think it belongs to titles, roles, or loud personalities. But what actually controls it are small, almost unnoticeable actions that trigger a chain reaction in how others perceive risk, confidence, and control. And once that chain reaction starts, it compounds. This is not about charisma. This is not about dominance. This is a simulation, and most people are playing it without seeing the rules. Consider a single individual entering a room. He doesn't rush, not because he's slow, but because nothing in the room is forcing him to move faster. His posture is neutral, but stable. His gaze doesn't scan for approval. It selects targets. Now observe what happens when someone steps into his focus area. In the first scenario, a second person approaches him with slightly elevated energy. Faster speech, small, unnecessary gestures. The moment they enter his attention field, they begin adjusting. Their tone softens. Their sentences get longer. They start filling silence. Why? Because his stillness creates pressure, and pressure reveals hierarchy. In the second scenario, a different individual enters the same space. They match his pace. They don't rush to speak. When silence appears, they don't fill it, they hold it. Now the system hesitates because the usual signal submission through overcompensation doesn't arrive. The interaction becomes unstable for a moment. This exact mechanic was observed repeatedly in behavioral studies on dominance signaling, where individuals who controlled tempo and reaction speed were consistently perceived as higher status, regardless of physical traits. The system is not reading confidence. It is reading who adjusts first. Power flows toward the one who forces adaptation. Now scale this into a small group, a team of 5, 1 leader, 1 challenger, 3 observers. The leader speaks first, sets direction. The group follows until a micro event interrupts the pattern. The challenger doesn't disagree loudly. That would be too obvious. Instead, he delays his response. Half a second longer than expected. Then he asks a question not to learn, but to reframe. Now watch the observers. The first observer immediately aligns with the leader, reinforcing the original structure. The second observer hesitates, his attention splits between the two. The third begins watching reactions instead of content. This is where hierarchy becomes fluid, because power in a group is not a fixed position. It is a constantly updating agreement. And that agreement is influenced less by what is said and more by who controls timing, pressure, and uncertainty. The leader attempts to stabilize. He responds quickly, trying to close the gap. But speed, in this moment, signals reaction, not control. The challenger does less. He speaks shorter, leaves space. And in that space, the group begins recalculating. Risk emerges. 2 risks define this moment. First, if the challenger pushes too hard, the group will reject him and return to the original structure. Second, if the leader overreacts, he confirms instability and accelerates the shift. The turning point comes when one of the observers redirects attention toward the challenger, asking for his input directly. That single act redistributes focus. The hierarchy flips not through force, but through collective reallocation of attention. At peak tension, recognize this pattern. The group is always searching for the most stable source of certainty. Follow this channel if you want to see these invisible shifts before they happen, because once you see them, you stop reacting to them. The system restabilizes around a new center, and that center is whoever the group believes requires the least adjustment. Now expand the scale. If this mechanic runs inside one person, what happens when it runs across thousands? Multiply this behavior across organizations, institutions, entire societies. You don't get chaos. You get structured hierarchies that look stable but are constantly shifting beneath the surface. Consider large corporations, where leadership changes don't happen because of titles, but because of perception shifts inside executive circles. Or historical power transitions, where empires didn't fall from external attack alone, but from internal recalculations of authority. In many cases, The decisive moment was not a battle but a hesitation, a delayed response, a signal that control had weakened. Studies on organizational behavior consistently show that perceived decisiveness, especially under uncertainty, correlates strongly with leadership retention. Even a small delay in critical moments can trigger cascading doubt. Scale that across thousands of observers and you get exponential impact. 600,000 reactions, all updating at once. What looks like a sudden collapse is often a slow shift reaching visibility, and it always starts the same way. One person fails to hold pressure and another does not. But every system has a counter mechanic. When two individuals understand this dynamic, the game changes. Because now, both are aware that power is not about action, but about controlled inaction. In these encounters, silence becomes a tool. Timing becomes strategy. Neither side rushes. Neither side overextends. This creates a different kind of tension, one where the group cannot easily resolve who holds control. Historical negotiations between high-level diplomats often reflect this pattern. Long pauses, minimal words, each side forcing the other to reveal intent first. The one who breaks structure, who fills silence too early or reacts too fast, loses leverage. The reason most people never reach this level is simple. It requires resisting the instinct to relieve tension, and most individuals are trained socially and psychologically to do the opposite. They speak to reduce discomfort. They act to regain certainty. But at higher levels, discomfort is not a problem. It is a resource. This is where the system becomes usable. Think of it as a cheat code. First, control your response timing. Do not rush to fill silence. Let others reveal their position first. Second, reduce unnecessary movement. Every extra gesture can signal adjustment. Third, speak in shorter, more deliberate sentences. Length often indicates uncertainty. Fourth, observe who the group watches when tension rises. That is the real center of power. Fifth, when challenged, do not defend immediately. Delay creates space, and space creates recalculation. Sixth, practice holding eye contact just slightly longer than average, not aggressively, but consistently. These are small adjustments, but they compound quickly. Now, two critical traps. Red alert. At the individual level, overusing these behaviors without awareness turns them into performance, and performance is detectable. At the group level, attempting to force control too early triggers resistance and collapses your position. Don't miss the next simulation. Because the deeper layers of the system only appear once you stop playing at the surface. Across all levels, individual, group, and systemic, the pattern is the same. Power is not held. It is continuously reassigned based on who controls pressure, timing, and uncertainty. Most people try to gain power by adding more words, more action, more force. But the system rewards the opposite: subtraction, precision, control. The core mechanic is simple. The one who adapts least controls most. And once you see that, every interaction stops being random and starts becoming predictable. The next simulation will show what happens when this mechanic is used against you without you realizing it.